A Vampire Romance, written by Amelia Hart. Chapter 1. Blood and Stone. The mop hit the floor with a wet slap. Nora Finch wrung out the gray water into the bucket, watching it swirl with dirt and chemicals from 6 hours of scrubbing office bathrooms. 3:07 a.m. The digital clock on the break room wall glowed green in the darkness. Her back ached. Her knees ached. Everything ached in that distant, numb way that came from doing the same motions for too long. She gathered her supplies, signed out on the timesheet, and pushed through the loading dock door into the October cold. The city was quiet at this hour. Not silent, never silent, but quieter. A distant siren, the hum of traffic 3 blocks over. Her breath fogged in the air as she pulled her jacket tighter and started walking. Nora took the same route every night. Down 5th Street, cut through the alley behind the old theater, emerge on Morrison Avenue, where the bus stop sat under a flickering streetlight. 15 minutes door to door. She'd walked it 200 times in the past 4 months. Tonight would be different. The alley smelled like rain and garbage. Nora's sneakers splashed through a puddle, the sound echoing off brick walls covered in faded graffiti. Halfway through, she heard footsteps behind her. Not unusual. Other people use this shortcut. She kept walking, keys already threaded between her fingers the way Rachel had taught her. Just in case. Hey. The voice was male. Close. Too close. Nora turned. 3 men blocked the alley behind her. She recognized the one in front, tattoo crawling up his neck. The same man she'd seen last week, loading boxes into a van at 2 a.m. The same man she'd made eye contact with for 3 seconds too long before hurrying past. "You remember me?" His smile showed too many teeth. Nora's pulse hammered against her ribs. "I don't want any trouble." Little late for that. He stepped forward. The other 2 fanned out, cutting off escape routes. "You saw something you weren't supposed to see. Can't have witnesses walking around." "I didn't see anything." Her voice came out steady despite the fear crawling up her throat. "I was just passing through. That's the problem." He nodded to the others. "Make it quick." Nora ran. She made it 3 steps before hands grabbed her jacket and yanked her backward. She hit the ground hard, air exploding from her lungs. A boot caught her ribs. Pain burst white behind her eyes. She tried to curl into a ball, tried to protect her head. But there were too many of them, too many hits coming too fast. Her lips split. Blood filled her mouth. Someone kicked her kidney and nausea rolled through her stomach. "That's enough." The tattooed man crouched beside her. Nora could barely see him through the blood running into her left eye. "Nothing personal, sweetheart." Wrong place. Wrong time. They left her there. Their footsteps fading into the distance. Nora tried to move. Her body wouldn't respond. The cold from the pavement seeped through her jacket, into her bones. She could taste copper, and smell garbage, and feel the wet, sticky heat of blood pooling under her cheek. She thought about Rachel, about the missed shift tomorrow, about the landlord who wouldn't care why the rent was late. She thought about being 28 years old and dying in an alley over something she didn't even understand. Then she thought about nothing at all. Nathaniel Graves had been tracking the renegade vampire for 6 nights. The creature was young, reckless, feeding without permission in territory that wasn't his. It was the kind of violation that started wars if left unchecked. He moved through the shadows between buildings, his senses stretched wide. 450 years of hunting made it second nature. The scent of blood, the sound of a heartbeat, the subtle wrongness in the air when one of his kind was near. Tonight, he smelled blood that was fresh and human and wrong. Nathaniel found her in the alley behind the theater. A woman, crumpled on the ground, dark hair matted with blood. Her heartbeat was weak but present, fluttering in her chest like a trapped bird. He crouched beside her, his gray eyes taking in the damage. Broken ribs, internal bleeding, head trauma. She'd been beaten severely and left to die. Human violence, not vampire. The brutality was different. He shouldn't care. Humans killed each other constantly, and it wasn't his concern. He had a renegade to hunt, territory to protect, a dozen crises waiting for his attention. But something made him pause. Maybe it was the set of her jaw, still tight even in unconsciousness. refusing to go gentle. Maybe it was the old scars on her wrists. Thin white lines that spoke of past pain survived. Maybe it was simply that he was tired of death. Nathaniel placed his palm against her forehead. Cool skin. Cooling further. He closed his eyes and pushed gently into her surface memories. Images flickered through his mind. A woman cleaning offices. Exhausted, but determined. A phone call from someone named Rachel. Laughter over coffee. A flash of last week. This same alley. 3 men loading boxes, the tattooed one looking up and meeting her eyes. Witness. Wrong place, wrong time. Innocent. He'd lived long enough to recognize the difference between predator and prey, between those who chose cruelty and those who simply endured it. This woman, Nora, her memories whispered, had done nothing but exist in the wrong moment. Nathaniel slid his arms beneath her, lifting her easily. She weighed nothing to him, light as paper, blood soaked into his black shirt. Her head lolled against his shoulder, that weak heartbeat fluttering against his chest. He moved through the shadows, faster than human eyes could track, across rooftops and through alleys until he reached the building on 7th Street, the one with the basement 3 levels down, where Dr. Haversham kept his secondary practice. The door opened before he knocked. Haversham was 60, gray-haired, steady-handed, and one of 3 humans in the city who knew what Nathaniel really was. Nathaniel. The doctor's eyes widened at the blood. What happened? Human violence. Multiple trauma. She's dying. Nathaniel carried her through the hallway into the sterile white room that looked like any emergency clinic. Can you save her? Haversham was already pulling on gloves, checking her pulse. Possibly. Why do you care? Good question. Nathaniel didn't have a good answer. She's innocent. So are a lot of people. But the doctor was already working, cutting away her jacket, assessing the damage. I'll need several hours. You're welcome to wait. Nathaniel stood in the corner, watching as Haversham moved through the practiced motions of saving a life. IV lines, blood transfusions, stitches for the worst lacerations. The woman, Nora, never woke. Her heartbeat strengthened slowly, grudgingly, fighting its way back from the edge. Dawn came and went above them. Nathaniel felt the pull of daylight, the heaviness that settled into his bones when the sun rose. But he didn't leave. He stood in the corner, black wavy hair falling into his face, gray eyes fixed on the unconscious woman, who had no idea what kind of creature had saved her life. She'll live. Haversham finally pulled off his gloves 12 hours later. Broken ribs, concussion, internal bruising. She'll need rest and time to heal, but nothing permanent. Good. What will you tell her when she wakes? Nathaniel considered that. The truth was impossible. Humans who learned about vampires either ended up dead or bound by magic to keep the secret, and both options required preparation he didn't have time for. I'll tell her enough. Nora woke to pain. It radiated through her entire body, sharp in her ribs, throbbing in her head, aching in places she didn't know could hurt. She tried to open her eyes. The left one wouldn't cooperate, swollen shut. The right showed her a white ceiling. Fluorescent lights turned low. The sterile smell of a medical facility, not a hospital. Something else. She turned her head slowly. A man sat in a chair beside the bed, reading a book. Dark hair fell past his shoulders in waves that caught the light. His skin was pale, almost luminous in the dim room. When he looked up, his eyes were the color of winter storms. You're awake. His voice was smooth, cultured, with an accent she couldn't place. Try not to move too quickly. Where am I? Her voice came out as a rasp. Her throat felt like sandpaper. Safe. He closed the book and leaned forward. You were attacked. I found you and brought you here. A doctor treated your injuries. Memory flooded back. The alley, the 3 men, the beating. How long? A day. You've been unconscious for 24 hours. Panic fluttered in her chest. My job. I need to call my job. Your phone. He produced it from the table beside him. Screen cracked but functional. 17 missed calls from someone named Rachel. 23 text messages. 3 voicemails. Rachel. Nora's fingers shook as she took the phone. She typed out a message, brief and vague. I'm okay. Need some time. Please don't worry. The man watched her without speaking. Nora studied him back. He was beautiful in a way that seemed wrong somehow. Too perfect to be entirely real. The kind of face that belonged in paintings, not sitting beside a medical bed in a basement clinic. Who are you? She asked finally. Nathaniel. He offered no last name. And you're Nora Finch, 28 years old, former nurse, currently working as a custodian. You live alone in an apartment on Morrison Avenue and have one friend named Rachel, who worries about you excessively. Ice crawled up her spine. How do you know that? I looked through your wallet. Your work ID has most of the information. He said it easily, but Nora saw the lie. There was more to it than that. Some way he knew things he shouldn't know. What do you want from me? Nothing. Nathaniel stood, moving with fluid grace toward the door. Rest. Heal. When you're strong enough to leave, we'll discuss what happens next. Wait. Nora tried to sit up, gasped at the pain in her ribs. Who were they? The men who attacked me? Nathaniel paused in the doorway, his profile sharp against the light from the hallway. People involved in things you're better off not knowing about. He looked back at her, those strange gray eyes holding hers. You survived, Nora. That's more than most manage. Don't waste it by asking questions that have dangerous answers. Then he was gone, the door closing softly behind him, leaving Nora alone in the white room, with pain and confusion, and the growing certainty that nothing about this was normal. Chapter 2. Strange Haven. Nora spent 3 more days in the white medical room. Dr. Haversham checked on her twice daily, changing bandages, monitoring her healing. Nathaniel appeared only once, standing in the doorway to ask if she needed anything. She said no. He left without another word. On the 4th morning, Haversham cleared her for discharge. You're healing remarkably well. The ribs will take another few weeks, but you're stable. Thank you. Nora sat on the edge of the bed, fully dressed in clothes someone had brought from her apartment. Her apartment. The thought sent anxiety crawling up her throat. I need to get back to work. About that, Nathaniel materialized in the doorway. Nora hadn't heard him approach. I made some calls. Your employer filled your position after you missed 3 consecutive shifts. The words hit like a physical blow. They fired me? You were unconscious. They didn't know that. His expression remained neutral. I'm sorry. Nora's hands clenched into fists. The pain in her ribs flared, but she ignored it. That job had been survival. Minimum wage, brutal hours, but it paid rent and bought food. Without it, she had nothing. I have a proposal. Nathaniel stepped fully into the room. In the harsh fluorescent light, his features looked even more striking. Sharp cheekbones, gray eyes that seemed to catch and hold light in unnatural ways. I own a property outside the city, a private residence. My personal library needs organization and cataloging. It's extensive work, several months at least. You're offering me a job. Suspicion leaked into her voice. Temporary employment. The hours would be evening and night, which I understand isn't ideal, but the pay is fair. He named a figure that made Nora's breath catch. 3 times what she'd been making cleaning offices. Why? Because you need work and I need someone with attention to detail. Your nursing background suggests you can follow complex organizational systems. He tilted his head slightly. And because I'm not in the habit of saving people only to watch them become homeless. Nora studied him. Everything about this felt wrong. Strange men didn't rescue women from alleys and then offer them jobs. There had to be an angle, something he wanted that he wasn't saying. But her bank account had $200. Rent was due in 12 days. And she'd learned at 18, after the pills in the hospital and the mandatory therapy, that pride was a luxury she couldn't afford. I'll try it. The words tasted like surrender. When do I start? Tomorrow evening. I'll send a car. The car was a black sedan with tinted windows and a driver who didn't make conversation. It picked Nora up at 7 p.m., driving for 40 minutes through suburbs that grew progressively more expensive until they reached a gated property at the end of a private road. The house, mansion really, sat behind iron gates and tall hedges. 3 stories of old stone and newer additions, windows that glowed warm against the autumn darkness. Nora's stomach twisted as the car pulled through the gates. Nathaniel met her at the front door. He wore dark slacks and a white shirt with the sleeves rolled to his elbows, somehow managing to look both casual and impossibly elegant. His black hair was pulled half back, revealing that thin scar through his left eyebrow. "Welcome." He gestured her inside. "The library is this way." The interior was exactly what Nora expected, and nothing like it at the same time. Expensive furniture, art on the walls, high ceilings with crown molding, but also modern electronics, comfortable-looking couches, a warmth that felt lived in rather than staged. They walked down a hallway lined with closed doors. Nora noticed that all the curtains were drawn despite the darkness outside. Heavy fabric that looked thick enough to block out light completely. The library made her stop in the doorway. Floor-to-ceiling shelves covered 3 walls, packed with books in every condition from ancient leather-bound volumes to new paperbacks. A rolling ladder provided access to the higher shelves. 2 reading chairs sat near a fireplace. A large desk dominated one corner, covered in organized chaos. "It's beautiful." The words slipped out before she could stop them. "It's a mess." Nathaniel moved to the desk, pulling out a leather-bound notebook. "I've been collecting for a long time. Nothing is properly categorized. I need everything organized by subject, author, and publication date. Condition noted for the older volumes. It's detailed work." "I can handle detailed." Nora stepped further into the room, running her fingers along the spines. Medical texts, history, philosophy, fiction in a dozen languages. "You read all of these?" "Most of them. I'm a slow reader." The corner of his mouth twitched, almost a smile. "Take tonight to familiarize yourself with the collection. Tomorrow we'll discuss the organizational system." He moved toward the door, then paused. "My daughter may come by. Evangeline. She's 12, shy around strangers. If she bothers you, let me know." "She won't bother me." Nora had always been good with kids. It was adults who complicated things. Nathaniel nodded once and left. Nora stood alone in the library, surrounded by books and silence, wondering what exactly she'd agreed to. Rachel called at 8:30 p.m. Nora had been avoiding her calls since leaving the medical facility, sending brief texts that said nothing useful. Now, sitting in Nathaniel's library with a cup of tea someone had brought her, she finally answered, "Where the hell have you been?" Rachel's voice crackled with anger and relief. "You send one cryptic text saying you're okay and then nothing for 4 days? I'm sorry. I was hurt, and then recovering, and then dealing with losing my job." "Hurt how?" "Nora, what happened?" Nora closed her eyes. "I got mugged. 3 guys. I ended up in a clinic, broken ribs, concussion. I'm okay now." Silence on the other end. Then quieter. "Jesus, why didn't you tell me? I would have come to the hospital." "It wasn't a hospital. Private clinic. And I'm telling you now." Nora heard the defensive edge in her voice and hated it. "Where are you right now? You sound weird." "I'm at work. New job. I'm organizing a private library." "You got a new job in 4 days?" Rachel's suspicion was immediate. "Nora, that doesn't make sense. What's really going on? The man who found me after the mugging, he owns the library. He offered me work." Even to her own ears, it sounded implausible. "The man who found you." Rachel's voice went flat. "A strange man found you injured and now you're working in his house. Do you hear yourself? It's not like that." "Then what's it like?" "Because from here it sounds like you're being incredibly naive about someone who might be dangerous." Nora's grip tightened on the phone. "He saved my life, Rachel. I'd be dead if he hadn't helped me. Or he's grooming you for something worse. God, Nora. You can't just trust people because they throw you a lifeline. That's how women end up dead in basements. I'm hanging up now." "Wait," Rachel sighed. "I'm sorry. I'm worried about you. You disappear, you get hurt, and now you're alone with some guy we know nothing about. Can you at least tell me his name? Give me an address in case I need to send the police to find your body?" "His name is Nathaniel Graves. I'll text you the address." Nora stood, pacing between bookshelves. "But I'm fine. I promise." "No, you're not. But you won't listen to me, so I guess I'll just wait for the other shoe to drop." Another pause. "I care about you. That's why I'm being harsh. I know. Call me if anything feels wrong. Anything at all." After they hung up, Nora stood in the library's silence. Rachel meant well, Rachel always meant well. But she didn't understand what it was like to have nothing. To be offered something and have to take it even when every instinct screamed that it was too good to be true. A soft sound made Nora turn. A girl stood in the doorway, small and pale with black wavy hair that fell to her waist. She wore a dark blue dress that looked vintage, Victorian almost, with long sleeves and a high collar. Her eyes were gray, just like Nathaniel's. "You must be Evangeline." Nora smiled gently. "I'm Nora. I'm organizing your father's books." The girl didn't speak, just watched with those unsettling gray eyes. Then she moved into the room with the same fluid grace her father had, approaching the shelves with obvious familiarity. "Do you like to read?" Nora asked. Evangeline nodded. She pulled a book from a lower shelf, something with a faded cover in French. She held it up, questioning. "I don't speak French." Nora moved closer. "What's it about?" The girl set the book on the desk and pulled out a small notebook from her dress pocket. She wrote quickly, her handwriting elegant and old-fashioned. "Stories about ghosts and old houses. Father says they're too advanced for me, but I read them anyway." "Sounds interesting." Nora studied the notebook technique. "Do you not speak, or do you prefer writing?" Evangeline hesitated, then wrote again. "I speak, but not to strangers usually. It takes time to trust." "I understand that." They spent the next hour in comfortable quiet, Evangeline reading in one of the chairs, while Nora worked through the fiction section. The girl would occasionally write a comment or question about the books Nora was handling, showing a sharp intelligence that seemed older than 12. At 10 p.m., Evangeline stood abruptly. "I have to go. Music lesson." She paused at the door. "You're different than the others. Less afraid." "Others?" But the girl was already gone, disappearing down the hallway with footsteps that made no sound. Nora worked until midnight. No one brought her dinner, but her ribs hurt too much to feel hungry anyway. She noticed things as the hours passed. The house was completely silent except for occasional distant footsteps. No television sounds, no music except for the faint classical melody that drifted from somewhere upstairs. No cooking smells. When she took a break to find the bathroom, she walked past a sitting room where two people stood talking in low voices. A red-haired man and a woman with short dark hair. They stopped when they saw her, their eyes tracking her movement with predator focus. Nora hurried past, feeling their stares like weight against her back. At 1 a.m., Nathaniel appeared in the library doorway. "You should head home. The driver's waiting." "I got pretty far with the fiction section." Nora gestured to her notes. "I'll need more time to assess the older volumes. Some of them look fragile." "We have time." He moved into the room, picking up one of the books she'd marked. His fingers handled it with obvious care. "This is an original printing, 1818. It should probably go in climate-controlled storage." Nora watched as he set it down. His hands moved with that same unsettling grace, efficient but somehow too smooth. "Can I ask you something?" "You can ask." "Why do you only work at night? Why does Evangeline? Why does everyone in this house seem to exist after sunset?" She watched his face carefully. "What aren't you telling me?" Nathaniel met her eyes. For a long moment he said nothing. Then, "Some questions have answers you're not ready for. Try me." "Not tonight." He held the library door open. "Go home, Nora. Rest. We'll talk more tomorrow." But as she left, as the silent driver took her back to her small apartment, Nora's mind turned over everything she'd seen. The drawn curtains, the absence of food, the cold temperature when Nathaniel's hand had brushed hers in passing, the way Evangeline moved without sound, the predatory focus of the strangers in the sitting room. Rachel had called her naive. Maybe she was right. But Nora had also been a nurse for 6 years before the panic attacks drove her out of medicine. She'd seen enough to know when something was medically wrong. And everything about Nathaniel Graves and his daughter was wrong in ways that didn't have medical explanations. The next evening, when the car came for her again, Nora brought her own notebook. Not for book organization, for observations. She'd learned young that knowledge was the only real protection against the things that wanted to hurt you. Whatever this family was, whatever secrets this house held, she was going to figure it out, even if the answers were dangerous. Especially then. Chapter 3. Crimson Truth. Nora had been working in Nathaniel's library for a week when she found the locked room. It was on the second floor, at the end of a hallway she'd explored while looking for a bathroom. The door was heavy oak, reinforced with iron bands, and when she tried the handle out of pure curiosity, it didn't budge. No keyhole. Just smooth wood and metal. That room is private. Nora spun around. Nathaniel stood behind her, silent as always. His black wavy hair fell loose around his shoulders tonight, and his gray eyes held no warmth. I was just looking for the bathroom. Third door on the left. He gestured down the hallway. This area is off limits. What's in there? Things you're better off not knowing about. He moved past her, his shoulder brushing hers. The contact sent a chill through her arm. His body temperature was wrong. Far too cold for a living person. Nora filed that observation away with all the others she'd been collecting. The house that never smelled like cooking food. The staff she'd only ever seen at night. The way everyone moved with that same fluid grace. Evangeline's pale skin that seemed almost translucent. The heavy curtains that stayed drawn even after sunset. She'd been a nurse. She knew what a normal human body looked and felt like. Nothing about this household fit that template. That night, Nora worked late. She'd gotten into a rhythm with the book organization, losing track of time as she cataloged medical texts from the 1800s. Some of them were fascinating, detailing surgical procedures that would be considered barbaric now. Others showed the slow evolution of understanding about disease and anatomy. At 3:47 a.m., her stomach growled. She'd skipped dinner again, too focused on work. Nathaniel had mentioned she could help herself to anything in the kitchen if she got hungry. Nora made her way downstairs. The house was silent except for distant classical music from Evangeline's room. She found the kitchen easily. A large space with modern appliances and marble countertops. The refrigerator was massive, stainless steel, industrial-sized. Nora pulled it open expecting to find normal food. Instead, she found rows of blood bags. Medical blood bags. The kind used for transfusions, labeled with blood types and dates, at least 30 of them, stacked neatly on 3 shelves. Her hand froze on the door handle. Her nursing instincts kicked in immediately. This was more blood than any private citizen should have. This was hospital-level storage. And the dates were all recent, rotated properly to keep the oldest in front. I was wondering when you'd find that. Nora's heart stopped. She turned slowly. Nathaniel stood in the kitchen doorway. He held one of the blood bags in his hand. As Nora watched, frozen in shock, he produced a glass from the cabinet and poured the contents into it. Dark red liquid, too thick to be wine, filled the glass halfway. He didn't hide it, didn't make excuses. He simply raised the glass to his lips and drank. Nora's brain tried to process what she was seeing. Blood. He was drinking blood. Human blood. The kind that should be in hospitals saving lives, not in a private kitchen being consumed like juice. You should sit down. Nathaniel's voice was calm. He gestured to the kitchen table. This conversation requires sitting. What are you? The words came out as a whisper. I think you already know. He finished the glass, rinsed it in the sink, and turned to face her fully. You've been collecting evidence all week. The cold skin, the nocturnal schedule, the absence of normal human needs. You're an intelligent woman, Nora. What conclusion have you reached? Her throat felt tight. Vampire. Yes. The word hung in the air between them. Nora's legs felt weak. She did sit down, gripping the edge of the table. Her nursing training warred with disbelief. Vampires weren't real. They were folklore, fiction, Halloween costumes. But she'd taken blood samples from patients. She knew what it looked like, smelled like, felt like, and she'd seen this man drink it without hesitation. Evangeline, too? Her voice sounded distant to her own ears. She was born vampire, not turned. It's rare, but possible. Nathaniel pulled out a chair and sat across from her. I'm 450 years old. I'm the king of all vampires in North America. This house is my primary residence. King. Nora's laugh came out broken. Of course you are. I understand this is difficult to process. Are you going to kill me? The question felt surreal. Now that I know? Nathaniel leaned back in his chair, studying her. If I wanted you dead, You'd have died in that alley. I don't save people only to murder them later. That would be remarkably inefficient. Then what happens now? Now you have a choice. His gray eyes held hers. I can remove your memories of this conversation, of this household, of everything you've learned. You'll wake up tomorrow believing you quit this job because it didn't work out. You'll never remember vampires exist. Or you stay. You learn the truth, and you help me with a problem I've been trying to solve for months. Nora's hands were shaking. She pressed them flat against the table. What problem? Nathaniel stood, moving to the window. Through the gap in the curtains, Nora could see the first hint of dawn on the horizon. The men who attacked you. They're part of a human trafficking operation. But they're not trafficking for labor or prostitution. They're selling people to renegade vampires. Vampires who feed without control, without permission, without regard for our laws. Your laws. Yes. We have laws, treaties, systems of governance that have existed for centuries. Rogue vampires who kill indiscriminately threaten all of us. They draw attention. They create hunters. They put every vampire at risk. Nora processed this. You're trying to shut down the trafficking ring. I've been investigating for 8 months. But there are gaps in my intelligence. Places I can't go during daylight. People who won't talk to vampires but might talk to a human. Medical facilities where victims might be treated after escape. He turned to face her. You have skills I need. Hospital connections. The ability to move during day. A mind that understands trauma and might recognize patterns I'd miss. Why would I help you? The question came out sharper than she intended. You're a vampire. You drink human blood. I drink donated blood from willing sources, properly compensated. I haven't killed a human in over a century except in self-defense. His jaw tightened. But the renegades I'm hunting? They torture. They murder. They treat humans as disposable food sources. The trafficking ring facilitates that. Helps them find victims that society won't miss. Women like me, Nora thought. Working night shifts, living alone. No family. No one who'd notice if they disappeared. If I help you, she said slowly. What do I get? Revenge against the men who hurt you. The satisfaction of stopping them from hurting others. And a purpose. Nathaniel's voice softened. I looked through your surface memories when I found you dying. I saw the scars on your wrists. I saw the darkness you survived. You've been existing, Nora, not living. This is a chance to do something that matters. The words hit too close. Nora's throat tightened. She'd spent 10 years surviving her suicide attempt at 18. Working dead-end jobs, avoiding connections, waiting for nothing in particular. The men in that alley had almost killed her, and somewhere in this city they were doing the same thing to other women. Feeding them to monsters. Literal monsters, apparently. How do I know you're telling the truth? She asked. How do I know you're not just a different kind of monster? You don't. Nathaniel's honesty was stark. You'll have to decide whether to trust me based on my actions, not my words. I saved your life when I could have let you die. I offered you work when you were desperate. I'm offering you a choice now instead of simply erasing your memory without consent. He paused. But ultimately, you have to decide if you believe I'm worth the risk. Nora stood on shaky legs. She walked to the refrigerator, opened it, stared at the blood bags again. Her nursing instincts cataloged them automatically. O, negative. A positive. B, negative. All labeled with dates within the past 2 weeks, all stored at proper temperature. Someone had donated this blood. Multiple someones. Which meant Nathaniel had a system. Resources. He wasn't just a monster hunting in alleys. She turned back to face him. If I stay, I want answers. Real ones. No more secrets about what you are or what you're doing. Agreed. And if I decide this is too dangerous, I can leave. With your memories intact, yes, you'll know the truth. You'll just choose not to be part of it. Nora took a breath. Her ribs still ached from the beating. Her left eye still had a yellow bruise fading at the edge. She'd almost died because she'd witnessed something she shouldn't have. Those men were still out there, still hurting people. And for the first time since she was 18 years old, standing on a bridge with pills in her stomach, she felt something other than numbness. Purpose. Clear and sharp and terrifying. "I'll help." The words came out firm. "I'll help you stop them." Nathaniel nodded once. "Then we start tomorrow night. I'll show you everything I've learned so far." He moved toward the doorway, then paused. "For what it's worth, Nora, I think you're braver than you realize. Most humans run screaming when they learn the truth. I've survived worse than vampires." A ghost of a smile crossed his face. "I believe you have." After he left, Nora sat alone in the kitchen as dawnlight crept through the windows. She'd just agreed to help a vampire hunt human traffickers. She'd learned that monsters were real and walked among humans wearing expensive suits. She should be terrified. Instead, for the first time in a decade, she felt alive. Chapter 4. Hunting Shadows. The hospital records room smelled like dust and old paper. Nora sat at a computer terminal in the basement, scrolling through patient intake files she technically shouldn't have access to. But her old nursing ID still worked, and the overnight security guard remembered her. She'd been searching for 3 hours. The pattern was there, if you knew how to look. Women between 20 and 40, all admitted to emergency rooms across the city over the past 8 months. All with similar injuries. Severe blood loss, bite marks explained away as animal attacks, psychological trauma documented as uncooperative or delusional. All discharged themselves against medical advice within 24 hours. Nora copied names and dates into her notebook. 12 women total. 4 were dead now, according to obituary searches. The other 8 had vanished completely. No social media updates, no employment records, no credit card activity. Gone. Her phone buzzed. A text from Nathaniel. "Found anything? 12 possibles. 4 confirmed dead, 8 missing. Good work. We'll compare notes tonight." Nora logged out and left the hospital as dawn broke over the city. She hadn't slept in 20 hours. Her body ached with exhaustion. But for the first time since she was 18 years old, since the bridge and the pills and the stomach pump, she felt something other than emptiness. Purpose. Sharp and clear and undeniable. She was helping stop monsters. Real ones, not the metaphorical kind that lived in her own head. That evening, Nora spread her research across Nathaniel's desk. He studied it with focused intensity, his gray eyes scanning each page. The red-haired man from before, Declan, stood nearby with arms crossed. "This matches what we've found." Nathaniel tapped 3 of the names. These women were seen near the docks 2 weeks before they disappeared. Witnesses reported them getting into unmarked vans. The docks. Nora pulled up a map on her phone. That's industrial. Lots of abandoned buildings. Lots of places to hide people. Declan's voice was rough. "We've been watching the area for weeks. There's an old commercial building, 3 stories, boarded windows, activity at night. Vehicles coming and going." Nathaniel leaned back in his chair. "We need proof before we move. Proof that it's the trafficking operation and not just squatters or drug dealers. I could go during the day." The words were out before Nora could reconsider them. "When vampires can't. See if there are people being held inside." "Absolutely not." Nathaniel's response was immediate. "If the traffickers are human, they're dangerous regardless of daylight. You'd be alone." "I've dealt with dangerous before. Being beaten nearly to death doesn't qualify you for reconnaissance missions." Nora's jaw tightened. "Then what's the point of me being here? You said you needed someone who could move during day. Someone humans would talk to. I'm offering." Declan exchanged a glance with Nathaniel. "She has a point. We're blind during daylight hours. If there are people in that building, waiting until sunset could mean the difference between saving them and finding corpses." Nathaniel was quiet for a long moment. His fingers drummed against the desk, the only sign of tension in his otherwise still posture. "If you go, you take a phone with GPS. You don't enter the building. You observe from a safe distance. At the first sign of danger, you leave." "Agreed. I mean it, Nora. We need intelligence, not heroes." She met his eyes. "I'm not trying to be a hero. I'm trying to be useful." Something shifted in his expression. Not quite a smile, but close. "You already are." 3 days later, Nora stood across the street from the abandoned commercial building at 2 p.m. She wore dark clothes and a baseball cap, trying to look like anyone else in this forgotten part of the city. Her phone was in her pocket, GPS enabled, Nathaniel's number on speed dial. The building looked dead. Boarded windows, graffiti-covered walls, weeds growing through cracked pavement. But there were signs if you looked closely. Fresh tire tracks in the dirt parking lot, a side door with a new padlock, and something else. A woman's face in a third-floor window, there for just a moment, pale and frightened, before someone pulled her back into darkness. Nora's heart hammered. She snapped a photo with her phone, zoomed in, sent it to Nathaniel. Then she circled the building slowly, counting exits. 3 doors, all locked. No fire escapes. Windows too high to reach without a ladder. Her phone buzzed. Get out. Now. We have what we need. But Nora was already moving. Because she'd heard something that made her blood run cold. A scream, muffled but unmistakable, coming from inside the building. She tried the front door. Locked. The side door. Also locked. She was reaching for the back entrance when footsteps crunched behind her. Can I help you? Nora turned. A man stood 10 feet away, mid-30s, clean-cut, wearing a security uniform. But his eyes were wrong. Too focused. Too predatory. I'm lost. She forced her voice steady. Looking for Morrison Street. You're pretty far off course. He moved closer. This area isn't safe. Lots of vagrants. You should leave. I will. Thanks for the warning. She turned to go. His hand caught her arm. Actually, maybe you should come inside. Use our phone to call someone. I have a phone. Nora pulled free. Her nurse training kicked in automatically. Assess the threat. Find the exit. Don't show fear. I insist. His grip returned, harder this time. It's not safe out here. Nora's hand went to her pocket. Not for the phone. For the small knife Rachel had given her months ago. The one she'd started carrying again after the alley. Her fingers closed around it. Let go of me. I don't think so. He started dragging her toward the building. You've been watching this place. Taking pictures. That's not very smart. Nora pulled the knife and slashed at his arm. He released her with a curse. She ran. Behind her, he shouted. Other voices answered. Footsteps pounded after her. She sprinted down the street, lungs burning, the building disappearing behind her as she put distance between herself and danger. She didn't stop running until she reached a convenience store 4 blocks away. Inside, with the clerk staring at her heaving, sweaty appearance, she called Nathaniel. I'm out. I'm safe. There are people in that building. I saw a woman in the window. And the guard. He tried to grab me. Are you hurt? No. Scared. But not hurt. Stay where you are. I'm sending Declan to get you. Nathaniel didn't lecture her when she returned to the mansion that evening. He simply spread a map across his desk and marked the building's location. We move tonight, before they relocate the victims. Can you just break in? Nora asked. Legally, I mean. Do vampires have laws about that? Our laws don't concern themselves with human property rights. Nathaniel's expression was grim. But if we find people being held against their will, human authorities will need to be involved eventually. We'll document everything. How many can you save? All of them, if we're fast enough. The liberation happened while Nora waited at the mansion. She paced the library, too anxious to sit. Evangeline appeared around 10 p.m. Watching Nora with curious gray eyes. Father is hunting tonight. I know. You helped him. I tried. The girl sat in one of the reading chairs, pulling her legs up under her dark dress. Why do humans hurt each other? Father says his kind do it for food or territory. But humans hurt each other for no reason sometimes. Nora stopped pacing. She thought about the men in the alley, the traffickers in the building, the rogue vampires who bought victims like products. Because some people are broken in ways that make them cruel. It's not about being human or vampire. It's about whether you choose to value other lives. Do you value vampire lives? The question was sharp. Nora met the girl's eyes. I'm helping your father stop vampires who hurt humans, and I'm helping him protect vampires who follow his laws. So yes, I suppose I do. Evangeline considered this. Then, Slowly, she smiled. It transformed her pale face, making her look less like a porcelain doll and more like a normal 12-year-old. I'm glad you're here. Father has been alone for a long time. Before Nora could respond, the front door opened. Voices filled the hallway. Nathaniel appeared in the library doorway, his dark hair disheveled, his white shirt torn and stained with blood. It's done. 9 women, all alive. Dr. Haversham is treating them now. Relief crashed through Nora. They're okay? Traumatized. Malnourished. But breathing. He moved to the desk, pulled out a bottle of something amber, poured 2 glasses, handed one to Nora. You did good work today. Reckless, but good. Will they be safe? The women? We're relocating them. New identities, financial support, therapy. He raised his glass. To small victories. Nora clinked her glass against his. The liquid burned going down, but the warmth that followed felt earned. 9 women alive tonight, because she'd looked through hospital records, because she'd stood across from that building, because she'd chosen to help a vampire king hunt monsters. She'd spent 10 years believing her life had no value, that surviving her suicide attempt had been pointless, that she was just marking time until the universe corrected its mistake. But tonight, 9 women were breathing. And for the first time since she was 18, Nora felt like maybe she was supposed to survive after all. Chapter 5. Betrayal Unveiled. The attack came on a Tuesday night while Nathaniel was away. Nora had been working in the library, cataloging a collection of first-edition medical texts when she heard glass shatter somewhere on the first floor. Her body went rigid. The house had been empty except for her. Evangeline was at a music lesson. The staff had the night off. She wasn't alone anymore. Footsteps moved through the hallway below. Slow, deliberate, searching. Nora's hand went to her phone. She texted Nathaniel quickly. Someone's in the house. The response came immediately. Hide. I'm 30 minutes away. Declan is 10. 10 minutes. She had to survive 10 minutes. Nora moved silently to the library door, easing it closed. The lock was flimsy, decorative. It wouldn't stop anyone determined to enter. She looked around for weapons. Books. A letter opener. Nothing useful against an intruder, except the knife. The small silver blade Rachel had given her, still in her jacket pocket from paranoia that had never quite left. The footsteps reached the second floor. Nora pressed herself behind the door, knife gripped in her right hand. Her heart hammered so hard she was certain it could be heard through the walls. The door opened slowly. A man stepped inside, mid-20s, blonde, moving with that same fluid grace all vampires shared. His eyes scanned the room, predator searching for prey. I can hear your heartbeat. His voice was casual. Might as well come out. Nora didn't move. She barely breathed. He turned toward her hiding spot. The king's little pet. You've caused quite a bit of trouble, you know. Some people think you're more liability than asset. He lunged. Nora threw herself sideways, slashing with the knife. The silver blade caught his arm. He screamed, stumbling back, flesh smoking where the metal touched. Silver? He clutched his arm, rage contorting his features. You cut me with silver? Stay back. Nora's voice shook, but her hand stayed steady. He laughed through the pain. You think that little knife will stop me? I'm 200 years old. I've survived wars. He moved faster than her eyes could track. His hand closed around her throat, lifting her off the ground. Nora couldn't breathe, couldn't scream. She slashed wildly with the knife, catching his chest, his shoulder, anywhere she could reach. The vampire snarled, throwing her across the room. She hit the bookshelf hard, books cascading down around her. Pain exploded through her back. The knife skittered across the floor. He advanced slowly, blood dripping from multiple wounds. I'm going to make this hurt. Send a message about what happens to humans who interfere. Nora's hand closed around a heavy book. She threw it at his face. He batted it aside. She scrambled for the knife, fingers closing around the handle just as he grabbed her leg. Then the library door exploded inward. Declan materialized like violence given form. His hand caught the blonde vampire by the throat, lifting him with casual strength. Bad idea attacking the king's household. The attacker struggled, but Declan's grip was iron. Julian sent me. He paid me. This isn't my fault. Julian. Declan's eyes narrowed. Of course it is. The blonde vampire's struggles grew weaker. Declan's hand tightened. Nora heard bones crack. Then the attacker went limp, head falling at an unnatural angle. Declan dropped the body. It hit the floor with a heavy thud. He turned to Nora, his expression softening slightly. You all right? I think so. Nora's voice came out raspy. Her throat ached where the vampire had grabbed her. He mentioned Julian. I heard. Declan pulled out his phone. Nathaniel needs to know. This changes everything. The council chamber was deep beneath the mansion, a space Nora had never seen before. Stone walls carved with symbols older than America. Candles that burned without consuming their wax. And vampires, dozens of them, seated in a semicircle around a raised platform where Nathaniel stood. Nora sat in a side alcove with Declan, watching through a one-way mirror. They can't see or hear you, Declan had explained, but you're here as witness if needed. Julian Cross stood at the center of the chamber. He was beautiful, in the way all old vampires were. Blonde hair perfectly styled, blue eyes cold as winter. He wore an expensive suit and an expression of righteous anger. You've compromised us all. His voice echoed through the chamber, bringing a human into sacred spaces, allowing her access to our secrets. She's a liability, Nathaniel. A security risk that threatens centuries of careful concealment. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the assembled vampires. Nathaniel stood on the platform, arms crossed, his black wavy hair pulled back to reveal his sharp features. Nora Finch has helped dismantle a trafficking operation that was feeding renegades. She's provided intelligence I couldn't access alone. Her presence has been an asset, not a liability. An asset? Julian's laugh was bitter. She's human. She has friends, family, connections. How long before she tells someone what we are? How long before hunters come knocking? She's given her word. The word of a human means nothing. Nathaniel's eyes flashed silver. Careful, Julian. You're questioning my judgment. I'm questioning your priorities. Julian turned to address the full council. The king has become attached to this woman. His decision-making is compromised. We need leadership that puts vampire interests first. Before Nathaniel could respond, the chamber doors opened. Dr. Haversham entered, supporting a woman. She was thin, pale, her dark hair pulled back from a gaunt face. One of the 9 they'd rescued. This is Maria Santos, Haversham said quietly. She has something to say. The woman's hands shook. Nathaniel descended from the platform, approaching her with obvious care. You're safe here. No one will hurt you. Maria looked up at him. Then her eyes swept the council chamber. They stopped on Julian. Her entire body went rigid. Him. Her voice cracked. He was there, at the building. He came 3 times while I was held. He spoke with the men in charge, gave them money, gave them names of other girls to take. The chamber erupted. Vampires shot to their feet, voices overlapping in shock and anger. Julian's face went carefully blank. She's lying, he said smoothly. A traumatized human making accusations, probably coached. I saw you. Maria's voice grew stronger. You wore a gray suit. You had a ring with a red stone. You told them to take women who wouldn't be missed. I heard you. Nathaniel raised his hand. Silence fell immediately. Declan, the vampire who attacked Nora tonight. What did he say? Declan stepped forward from the alcove, bringing Nora with him. He said Julian sent him. Julian paid him. We found records on his phone. Financial transfers from an account registered to Cross Holdings. $5,000 deposited yesterday. Payment for eliminating a problem. Julian's composure cracked. That proves nothing. Someone could have framed me. Could they? Nathaniel pulled out a tablet, projecting images onto the stone wall. Financial records, photographs, security footage showing Julian entering and leaving the commercial building over several months. This is 8 months of evidence. Transfers totaling $300,000 to the trafficking operation. You weren't just involved, Julian. You were a partner. You profited from selling humans to renegades. The chamber fell silent. Every vampire stared at Julian with expressions ranging from shock to disgust. You endangered us all, Nathaniel continued, his voice deadly quiet. Rogue vampires draw hunters. Hunters threaten every vampire in my territory. And you facilitated it for profit. Julian's mask shattered completely. You've gone soft. Caring about humans. Making treaties with their governments. We're predators, Nathaniel. We shouldn't be hiding in shadows playing by their rules. We survive by adapting. By choosing our battles. Nathaniel descended the steps toward Julian. You chose to betray everything we've built for personal gain. That's not strength. That's cowardice. Better a coward than a fool. Julian's hand moved to his jacket. Nora saw the flash of metal, a gun loaded with wooden bullets. Nathaniel! She shouted, but Declan was already moving. The next seconds were chaos. Julian fired 3 shots. Declan tackled Nathaniel sideways. 2 bullets hit stone. One caught Declan in the shoulder, and he went down with a grunt. Julian ran for the exit. He made it 3 steps before 5 vampires blocked his path. He spun, gun raised, but Nathaniel was already there. His hand closed around Julian's wrist. Bones cracked. The gun clattered to the floor. By the laws of this council, Nathaniel's voice carried absolute authority. The penalty for treason against the king is death. You've confessed your crimes through your actions. Does anyone dispute this judgment? Silence. No one spoke. No one moved. Then I offer you a choice, Julian. Accept exile. Leave this continent and never return. Or face execution. Julian's face twisted with hate. I'd rather die than run from you. He pulled a second weapon from his belt. A silver knife. He lunged at Nathaniel, blade aimed for his heart. Nathaniel moved aside smoothly. His hand caught Julian's arm, redirecting the momentum. Julian stumbled forward, off balance. Nathaniel's other hand moved almost too fast to see. There was a sickening crack. Julian collapsed. His head bent at an angle that was wrong, impossibly wrong. The knife fell from his lifeless fingers. Nathaniel stood over the body, breathing hard, his gray eyes still blazing silver. Let this be a lesson. I protect this territory. I protect those under my rule, human and vampire alike. Anyone who threatens that will face the same judgment. He looked up at the assembled council. This meeting is adjourned. Vampires filed out silently. Nora remained frozen in the alcove, watching as attendants carried Julian's body away. She'd just witnessed an execution. A vampire king killing his own. His hand closed around Julian's wrist. Bones cracked. The gun clattered to the floor. By the laws of this council, Nathaniel said, voice carrying absolute authority. Treason against the king is punishable by death. You've confessed through action. Does anyone dispute this judgment? Silence. No one moved. Then choose, Julian. Exile. Leave this continent and never return. Or execution. I'd rather die than run from you. Hatred twisted Julian's beautiful face. A second blade flashed. Silver. Nathaniel stepped aside, redirecting the lunge. The knife bit only air. He caught Julian's forearm, turned the momentum, and there was a sickening crack. The blade rang on stone. Julian collapsed, head bending at an angle nature did not permit. Breathing hard, Nathaniel stood over the body, his eyes bright with cold silver fire. Let this be a lesson. I protect this territory. I protect those under my rule, human and vampire. Anyone who threatens that faces the same judgment. He looked up. This meeting is adjourned. Vampires filed out, the chamber swallowing their footfalls. Nora stared as attendants lifted Julian's body. She just watched a king execute his own counselor. A shadow filled the alcove entrance. Blood stained Nathaniel's white shirt. His hair had come loose around his shoulders. He looked older, wearier. Are you hurt? His first question was for her, not himself. No. Declan saved me. Is he okay? He'll heal. He touched her throat with unusual gentleness where bruises were already blooming. I should have been here. You couldn't have known. I should have suspected Julian sooner. His jaw hardened. He could have killed you, but he didn't. I fought back. Nora held his gaze. I'm not helpless, Nathaniel. Something shifted. Respect, recognition. No, you're not. What happens now? To the trafficking operation? To the others? Now we finish what we started. Julian's network dies with him. Every rogue he supplied answers for their crimes. I want to help. You already have. He paused, then nodded once. Then we hunt, together. Chapter 6. Desperate Measures. News of Julian's execution rippled through the city before sunrise. By late afternoon, the ripples hit back. 2 guards lay unconscious in a storage room off the music wing, chests rising shallowly. Even vampires looked small when they were still. Hawthorn extract, Declan said, checking pupils. Cut with vampire blood. Old sedative. Rare. Who has access? Nathaniel's voice was the kind of calm that happens right before a storm breaks. Apothecaries, old-world medics, professionals. Cameras were taken offline. Clean job. Nathaniel's thumb flew over his phone. He went very still. I can feel her. The bond says she's alive. Afraid. Underground. Enclosed. Victor, Nora said. The name tasted like iron. Julian's brother. Leverage, Nathaniel answered, staring at late sunlight seeping around the blackout curtains. Evangeline for my throne. Or my life. You need to find her before nightfall, Nora said. He's weaker now. Expecting you. Expecting vampires. I can't step into daylight. But I can. Absolutely not. Listen. She closed the distance. He won't expect a human woman walking in while the sun's still up. I get her. We leave. And you're waiting at dusk. If anything happens to you, nothing will. She touched his sleeve, cold through linen. Trust me. The service entrance hid behind a condemned brick facade over the old industrial tunnels. At 5:30 p.m., the sun spilled orange gold across broken glass and weeds. Nora picked the lock and slipped into damp shadow, a flashlight in one hand. The small silver knife Rachel had pressed into her palm months ago in the other. Nathaniel's voice murmured in her ear through the comm. Left at the junction. 30 meters. Stairs down. The tunnels smelled of wet stone and old metal. Graffiti ghosted past her beam. I can feel her closer, Nathaniel said, tight with control. She knows you're coming. She's steadying herself. A newer steel door broke the pattern of rot and rust. Electronic lock. Behind it, a whisper. Evangeline's voice, thin but composed. Nora, I'm here. Nora scanned the frame. Can you open from inside? No, vent, upper left. I can fit. The grate hung loose. Careful, Nora breathed. A pale face appeared, gray eyes wide and clear. Evangeline wriggled like smoke and dropped into Nora's arms. She weighed almost nothing. Are you hurt? A shake of the head, and a quick point down the tunnel. Danger. Footsteps. Slow. Dragging. Waking. Run, Nora signed. Evangeline nodded, fingers answering. Together. They sprinted, breath in cold air and the slap of shoes on wet concrete. A voice followed, echoing ugly off-tile. You think you can steal what's mine? Victor. Awake too early. Deep enough underground to cheat the sun. The stairs loomed. Go! Nora boosted Evangeline first. The girl moved with a sudden blur that didn't belong to humans. Fingers like iron closed on Nora's ankle. She kicked hard, connected with a face she couldn't see. Scrambled up into a basement washed in gray daylight. Sunlight knifed through a high window. Victor recoiled with a hiss, skin smoking where light touched. This isn't over, he spat. You're both dead. He didn't see Nathaniel step from the stairwell shadow as the first edge of dusk slid across the floor. Actually, Nathaniel said, voice like winter. You are. What followed was motion, more than sight. 2 blurs colliding, the air cracking with impact. Silence after. Nathaniel emerged, carrying Victor's limp body like refuse, destined for the council's judgment. Evangeline collided with her father, arms fierce around his neck. She looked back at Nora, and for the first time, spoke without the safety of her notebook. Thank you. Nora's knees finally remembered fear and tried to fold. She stayed upright on stubbornness and adrenaline, and the absurd knowledge that, somehow, This was the first time she'd felt like she belonged to anything in years. Outside, night finished falling. Inside, a family, unlikely, fragile, fierce, held fast. She's been spending more time in the practice rooms. I think the violence unsettled her. She's 12. Of course it unsettled her. Nathaniel's expression softened. She asked about you yesterday. Wanted to know if you were leaving now that the trafficking ring is dismantled. What did you tell her? That it was your choice. Nora was quiet for a moment. The truth was, she hadn't decided. The immediate crisis was over. 9 women were safe. Julian was dead. The renegades he'd supplied were being hunted systematically by Nathaniel's people. She could leave. Go back to her small apartment, find another cleaning job, return to the simple existence she'd had before. But the thought felt hollow, like stepping backward into a life that no longer fit. I haven't decided yet, she said finally. Before Nathaniel could respond, his phone rang again. He glanced at the screen, frowned, and answered. Declan, what's wrong? Nora watched his face change. The exhaustion vanished, replaced by sharp, focused alarm. When? A pause. How many? Another pause, longer this time. I'm on my way. He ended the call and was moving toward the door before Nora could ask questions. Evangeline's music tutor just called. She never arrived for her lesson. Ice flooded Nora's veins. Maybe she's just late. She's never late. And her phone goes straight to voicemail. Nathaniel's hand was already on the door handle. Her security detail isn't responding either. They found the security detail 15 minutes later. 2 vampires, both experienced guards, both unconscious in a storage room near the music wing. Drugged with something that affected even vampire physiology. Hawthorn extract, Declan said, examining one of the guards. Mixed with vampire blood. It's an old sedative. Rare. Who has access to it? Nathaniel's voice was deadly calm, the kind of calm that preceded violence. Apothecaries, medical facilities, anyone with knowledge of old vampire medicine. Declan stood. The cameras were disabled. Professional work. Nathaniel pulled out his phone. His fingers flew across the screen. Then he went very still. I can feel her, the blood bond. She's alive, but she's afraid. Can you track her? Not precisely. The bond tells me emotional state, not location. His jaw clenched. She's underground, somewhere dark and enclosed. She's trying to be brave. Nora's heart twisted. She thought of Evangeline, small and pale, and always so careful around strangers. Who would take her? Julian's supporters. Nathaniel's eyes flashed silver. Victor Cross, Julian's younger brother. He must have planned this before the council meeting, as insurance. What does he want? Leverage. Nathaniel moved to the window, staring out at the late afternoon sun. Evangeline in exchange for something. My throne, probably. Or my life. He can't seriously think you'd trade yourself. He's desperate. Julian was his brother. He's not thinking clearly. Nathaniel turned back. I need to find her before nightfall. Once the sun sets, Victor will have full strength. Right now, he's weakened, hiding wherever he has her. So you have an advantage, Nora said slowly. An idea was forming, dangerous and probably stupid. Right now, while it's still daylight. I can't go out in daylight, but I can. Nathaniel's head snapped toward her. Absolutely not. Listen to me. Nora moved closer. Victor is expecting you. He's expecting vampires. He won't be expecting a human woman to walk in during late afternoon when his kind are at their weakest. You'd be alone. Vulnerable. I was vulnerable in that alley. I survived. She met his eyes. I can do this, Nathaniel. Let me help. If anything happens to you, nothing will happen. I'll find Evangeline, get her out, and be gone before Victor fully wakes. She touched his arm. His skin was cold, always cold, but somehow comforting. Trust me. The abandoned subway tunnels ran beneath the old industrial district. Nathaniel had tracked Victor's property holdings and found 3 possibilities. The most likely was a maintenance station 2 miles underground, accessible through a service entrance in a condemned building. Nora stood outside that building at 5:30 p.m. The sun was low but still present, painting everything in orange gold light. She had a flashlight, her phone with GPS, and the silver knife Rachel had given her. She also had Nathaniel's voice in her ear through a small earpiece. The entrance is through the basement. Third door on the left. Got it. Nora picked the lock, a skill she'd learned from a patient during her nursing days. The door swung open with a rusty groan. Inside, darkness swallowed everything. She clicked on the flashlight and descended. The tunnels smelled like mold and standing water. Graffiti covered the walls, decades old. Nora moved carefully, following Nathaniel's directions through the earpiece. Turn left. Straight for 50 meters. Down the stairs. I can feel her nearby. Nathaniel's voice crackled. She knows you're coming. She's trying to stay calm. Nora's light caught something. A door, newer than the surroundings, with a modern lock. She approached carefully. Behind the door, she heard movement. Then Evangeline's voice, barely a whisper. Nora, I'm here. Nora examined the lock. Electronic, requiring a keycard. Can you unlock this from inside? No, but there's a vent, upper left corner. I'm small enough. Nora swept her light upward. Sure enough, a ventilation grate hung loose on one side. Can you reach it? I think so. Nora heard scraping sounds. Metal against metal. Then Evangeline's pale face appeared in the vent opening. Her black hair was disheveled, her gray eyes wide with fear. But she was moving. Come on, Nora whispered. Carefully, Evangeline wiggled through the narrow opening and dropped into Nora's arms. She weighed almost nothing. Nora set her down gently. Are you hurt? The girl shook her head. Then she pointed down the tunnel. Danger. Nora heard it a moment later. Footsteps. Slow, dragging, but approaching. Someone was waking up. Run! Nora signed to Evangeline, using the few signs she'd learned. The girl nodded, and they sprinted back the way Nora had come. Behind them, a voice echoed through the tunnels. You think you can steal what's mine? Victor. Awake too early. The deep tunnels must have blocked enough light to let him rouse. Nora and Evangeline ran faster. The tunnel stretched endlessly. Nora's lungs burned. Evangeline's hand gripped hers with surprising strength. They reached the stairs. Nora pushed Evangeline ahead. Go. Don't stop. The girl climbed, her vampire speed kicking in despite her young age. Nora followed, her human legs slower, clumsier. A hand caught her ankle. She screamed, kicking hard. Her boot connected with Victor's face. He snarled, releasing her for just a second. It was enough. Nora scrambled up the last steps and into the basement. Daylight streamed through a high window. Victor recoiled from it, hissing. This isn't over, he spat. You're both dead. But then Nathaniel was there. The sun had set while they were underground. He moved like liquid death, appearing behind Victor in the tunnel entrance. Actually, Nathaniel's voice was ice. You are. What happened next was too fast for Nora to see clearly. Two blurs of movement, the sound of impact. Then silence. Nathaniel emerged from the tunnel carrying Victor's unconscious body. The council will deal with him, properly this time. Evangeline threw herself at her father, signing frantically. Safe now. Scared, but safe. Nathaniel knelt, holding his daughter close. His eyes met Nora's over the girl's head. Thank you, he mouthed. Nora nodded, her heart still racing. They'd done it. Evangeline was safe. And somehow, in this world of vampires and violence and impossible choices, Nora had found something she'd thought lost forever. A family worth fighting for. Chapter 7. Aftermath. 3 weeks passed before the full weight of what they'd accomplished settled in. Nora sat in a coffee shop on Morrison Avenue, watching the morning traffic through rain-streaked windows. Her phone buzzed with a message from Dr. Haversham. Maria Santos just accepted the job offer. She starts Monday. Maria, one of the 9 women they'd rescued. The one who'd identified Julian in the council chamber. She was alive, working, rebuilding her life piece by piece. Nora typed back. That's wonderful. Tell her I'm proud of her. The trafficking operation was gone. Not just dismantled, eradicated. The human authorities had arrested 17 people based on anonymous tips. The commercial building had been raided, evidence cataloged, Connections traced back to 3 other cities. It would be years before trials concluded. But the network was broken, and the 9 women. God, the 9 women. They had new identities, financial support, therapy sessions with counselors who specialized in trauma. Dr. Haversham had coordinated it all with quiet efficiency. 2 had already found jobs. 1 was enrolled in community college. Another had reconnected with family she'd been estranged from. They were surviving. More than that, they were healing. Nora? She looked up. Rachel stood beside the table, coat dripping rain, her expression uncertain. They hadn't spoken in person since their argument 3 weeks ago. Just texts. Brief, awkward exchanges that said nothing important. Rachel. Nora gestured to the empty chair. Sit, please. Rachel sat slowly, setting her bag on the floor. She looked tired. Older than her 30 years. I'm sorry. For what I said. For disappearing. I'm sorry, too. For shutting you out. They sat in uncomfortable silence for a moment. Then Rachel leaned forward. What really happened? And don't give me that edited version about helping police. I know you, Nora. Something changed. Nora chose her words carefully. I got involved in something bigger than I expected. Helping someone investigate crimes. It was dangerous, but it was also important. The man, Nathaniel. Yes. Are you safe with him? Nora thought about that question. About Nathaniel executing Julian. About the vampire who'd attacked her in the library. About racing through subway tunnels to rescue Evangeline. Safe is complicated. But yes, he's never hurt me. Never threatened me. He's protected me when I needed it. Rachel studied her face. You look different. Not bad different. Just different. More solid somehow. I feel different. Nora traced the rim of her coffee cup. For the first time since I was 18, I feel like I'm doing something that matters. Like my life has purpose beyond just existing. Because of him, because of the work. Because I'm helping people who need help. She met Rachel's eyes. 9 women are alive right now. Because I looked through hospital records. Because I stood watch outside a building. Because I chose to be useful instead of invisible. Rachel was quiet for a long moment. Then she reached across the table and took Nora's hand. I'm glad you found that. Really. I just wish it didn't involve mysterious rich men with private libraries. He's not what you think. Maybe not. But promise me something. If it ever stops feeling right, if you ever feel unsafe, you'll leave. You'll call me and I'll come get you. No questions asked. I promise. They spent another hour talking. Not about vampires or trafficking or danger. About normal things. Rachel's job at the bookstore. Her awful dating life. The new apartment she was considering. The kind of conversation they used to have before Nora's world tilted sideways. When they parted, Rachel hugged her tightly. Don't be a stranger. I mean it. I won't. Watching Rachel walk away through the rain, Nora felt something loosen in her chest. She'd been so focused on the vampire world that she'd forgotten about her human connections. About the friend who'd given her a silver knife and worried about her safety. She wouldn't make that mistake again. That evening, Nora stood in the Vampire Council chamber for the 2nd time. But now, she wasn't hidden behind a one-way mirror. She stood beside Nathaniel on the raised platform, facing 24 vampires who watched her with varying degrees of curiosity and suspicion. This is unprecedented. An older vampire with silver hair said. Lady Morgana, Nathaniel had explained. 300 years old, originally from England. Humans don't sit on the council. She's not sitting on the council, Nathaniel replied calmly. She's being appointed as official advisor on human affairs. A consultative position, not a voting one. Still unprecedented. Many things about recent events have been unprecedented. Nathaniel gestured to the empty seats where Julian and his supporters had once sat. We've lost members to treason. We've exposed corruption that reached the highest levels of our governance. If we're rebuilding, we might as well build something better. A younger vampire spoke up. What qualifies her for this position? She has medical training, which gives her insight into human health systems where our kind often intersect. She has investigative skills that proved invaluable in dismantling the trafficking operation. and she has something most of us lack. Nathaniel paused. She remembers what it's like to be human and vulnerable. That perspective is valuable when we make decisions that affect mortal lives. Nora felt dozens of pairs of eyes on her. She kept her chin up, her expression neutral, the way Nathaniel had coached her. "I'm not here to change your laws or challenge your authority," she said, her voice steady. "I'm here to provide information when you need it, to help bridge the gap between your world and mine, to make sure decisions are informed by actual human experience, not assumptions." Lady Morgana tilted her head. "And if we ask you to leave, to forget what you've learned, then I leave. I've been offered that choice twice already. I chose to stay both times, but the choice remains mine." Something like approval crossed the vampire's face. "Honest, I like that." She looked at Nathaniel. "I'll support this appointment, on a trial basis. 6 months. We'll reassess then." Other vampires murmured agreement. Not all of them, but enough. Nathaniel nodded formally. "Then it's decided. Nora Finch is appointed as Human Affairs Advisor, effective immediately." Later, in Nathaniel's study, they shared a drink. Nora's hands shook slightly as she raised the glass. "You did well tonight," Nathaniel said. "Lady Morgana's support means the others will fall in line eventually. I thought I was going to pass out." Nora drained half the glass. The whiskey burned but steadied her. 24 vampires staring at me like I might be dinner. "You were never in danger. I wouldn't have brought you otherwise." "I know." And she did. Over the past 3 weeks, she'd learned to read him. The subtle shifts in posture that indicated tension. The way his eyes went silver when he was angry. The rare, genuine smile when Evangeline made him laugh. "Thank you for trusting me with this. You earned it." He refilled both their glasses. "The trafficking ring is dismantled. The renegades are being hunted systematically. Julian's supporters have been identified and dealt with. You helped accomplish all of that." "We accomplished it." "Yes." His gray eyes held hers. "We did." The moment stretched between them, heavy with something Nora couldn't quite name. Not attraction exactly. Something deeper. Recognition, maybe. Two people who'd been alone for too long finding unexpected companionship. Nathaniel broke the silence first. "Victor Cross's family has made contact. They're requesting a formal audience. To seek revenge? To negotiate compensation. Julian's death, however justified, requires restitution under vampire law. Blood debt. What kind of compensation? Financial, usually. Sometimes territorial concessions. It depends on how reasonable they want to be." He set down his glass. "There's a possibility they'll demand more. Challenge my authority. Force a power struggle. Can you handle that? I've been king for 200 years. I've survived worse." But the weariness in his voice suggested the cost of that survival. The study door opened. Evangeline entered, her black wavy hair loose around her shoulders. She'd been practicing piano, and her fingers still moved unconsciously, tracing melodies on invisible keys. She saw Nora and her face lit up. She crossed the room and did something she'd never done before. She hugged Nora tightly. Nora's arms came up automatically, holding the girl close. Evangeline was cold. Always cold, but the embrace felt genuine and warm anyway. When the girl pulled back, she signed quickly. "Thank you for saving me. I was so scared." "You were brave," Nora signed back, her limited vocabulary barely adequate. "Very brave." Evangeline turned to her father, switching to verbal speech. "Can Nora stay? Forever? Can you turn her into one of us?" The question landed like a bomb. Nathaniel's expression went carefully neutral. Nora's heart stuttered. "Evangeline," Nathaniel said gently, "transformation isn't a decision to make lightly. It's permanent, irreversible. Nora would lose her humanity, her ability to walk in sunlight, her entire mortal life. But she'd stay with us." The girl's logic was simple, childlike. She wouldn't grow old and die. "That's true." Nathaniel looked at Nora. "But it would also mean an eternity of drinking blood, of hiding from human society, of outliving everyone she knows. It's not a gift, Evangeline. It's a curse that some of us learn to bear." Nora found her voice. "I'm not ready for that choice. Maybe someday, but not now. I want to live as a human first. Experience things I missed while I was just surviving." She touched Evangeline's cheek. "But I'm not going anywhere. Not for a long time." The girl nodded, accepting this. She kissed Nora's cheek and left as quietly as she'd entered. Alone again, Nathaniel and Nora sat in silence. Finally, he spoke. "She's right, you know. Eventually, you'll age. I won't. That reality will complicate things. Eventually isn't now." Nora met his eyes. "Right now, I'm here. I'm alive. I'm doing work that matters. That's enough." "Is it?" "Yes." She meant it. For the first time since I was 18, standing on a bridge with pills in my stomach, I feel like I'm supposed to be alive. Like surviving that night meant something. I'm not wasting that gift by rushing into immortality. Nathaniel's expression softened. "You remind me why I've tried to protect humanity all these centuries. Why I've fought to maintain balance between our worlds." He raised his glass. "To living in the present. To purpose found in unexpected places." They drank, and Nora felt the truth of it settle into her bones. She'd started this journey bleeding in an alley, broken and forgotten. Now she sat in a vampire king's study, planning how to navigate the politics of immortal beings. Her life would never be normal again. But normal had never worked for her anyway. Chapter 8. Home. The negotiation with Julian's family took place in a neutral location, an old mansion in Connecticut that had served as treaty ground for over a century. Nora wasn't invited to attend. This was vampire business, conducted by vampire laws she didn't fully understand. She waited at Nathaniel's mansion, pacing the library, checking her phone every few minutes. Evangeline sat in a reading chair, watching Nora with those knowing gray eyes. "Father will be fine," the girl signed. "He's good at negotiations." "I know." But knowing didn't stop the anxiety crawling up Nora's spine. The call came at 9 p.m. Nathaniel's voice was steady, carrying relief. "It's done. They accepted financial compensation. No blood feud. No challenges to my authority." "How much?" $2 million. Territory rights to 3 commercial properties." He paused. "It's fair. Julian's death cost them political standing. This restores some of that. So it's over. This part is. There will always be another crisis. That's the nature of governing immortal beings with long memories." His voice softened. "But tonight, yes, it's over." Nora ended the call and sank into a chair. The weight she'd been carrying for weeks lifted. The trafficking ring was gone. Julian was dead. Victor was imprisoned. The family had accepted compensation. They'd won. The next morning, Nora stood in her old apartment for the last time. The space felt smaller than she remembered. Darker. The walls that had witnessed her depression, her isolation, her survival. She'd signed the sale papers yesterday. A young couple, just married, excited about their first place together. They had no idea a woman had once stood by these windows contemplating whether jumping was faster than pills. Rachel helped her pack the last boxes. "You're really doing this. Moving in with the mysterious library man." "I am." "And you're sure?" "Because once you sell, there's no safety net." Nora sealed a box of books with tape. "I haven't felt this sure about anything in 10 years. Maybe ever." Rachel was quiet for a moment, folding clothes into a suitcase. Then, "You look happy. Really happy. I haven't seen that in you since we met. I feel happy. Like I finally understand what I'm supposed to be doing with my life. Which is helping people, making a difference, being part of something bigger than just surviving day to day." Nora met her friend's eyes. "I know it sounds dramatic, but it's true. It doesn't sound dramatic. It sounds right." Rachel zipped the suitcase. "I'm glad you found that. Even if I still think your employer is suspicious, he's not what you think. No one ever is." They loaded the boxes into a rental truck. Nora took one last look at the apartment. The place where she'd been invisible, where she'd gone through motions without feeling anything real. She locked the door and didn't look back. Nathaniel's mansion had rooms Nora had never seen. He offered her a suite on the 2nd floor, 3 rooms with windows facing east. "Morning light," he explained, so she could wake with the sun. The bedroom was larger than her entire old apartment. A 4-poster bed with dark blue curtains. A desk by the window. bookshelves already partially filled with volumes she'd mentioned liking during library work. "It's too much," she said, standing in the doorway. "It's a bedroom. You need somewhere to sleep." Nathaniel stood beside her, his black wavy hair pulled back. "Unless you'd prefer different accommodations." "No. This is perfect. That's the problem." "Why is perfect a problem?" Nora turned to face him. "Because I keep waiting for the catch. For the moment you tell me what all this generosity really costs. It costs nothing." His gray eyes held hers. "You've earned a place here. Through your work, your courage, your choices. This isn't charity, Nora. It's recognition. What about when I get old? When I'm 40, 50, 60 and you still look 32? Then you'll be 40, 50, 60 and I'll still value your counsel and your friendship." He moved to the window, looking out over the grounds. "I'm offering you the possibility of transformation. Not now. Not soon. But eventually, if you choose it, the option will remain open. And if I never choose it, then I'll protect you for as long as you live. And when you die, I'll mourn a friend I was privileged to know." His voice carried absolute sincerity. "The choice is always yours, Nora. That's the only condition that matters." She believed him. That was the terrifying part. She actually believed a vampire king would let her grow old and die rather than force immortality on her. "Thank you," she said quietly, "for giving me time. Thank you for staying." Rachel visited 2 weeks after Nora moved in. She arrived at noon, when sunlight made the mansion look less gothic and more like an expensive estate. Nora met her at the door. "This place is ridiculous," Rachel said, staring at the marble foyer. "How does anyone afford this? Old money. Very old." They toured the public rooms. The library, which made Rachel gasp with book-lover delight. The sitting rooms with their art and elegant furniture. The kitchen, enormous and modern. "Where's the mysterious employer?" Rachel asked, accepting tea in a china cup. "He works nights. You'll probably never meet him." Nora sipped her own tea. "But his daughter might appear. She's shy but curious about visitors." As if summoned, Evangeline drifted into the kitchen. She wore a pale green dress today, her black hair in a long braid. She studied Rachel with cautious interest. "Evangeline, this is my friend Rachel." "Rachel, this is Evangeline." "Hi," Rachel said gently. "I've heard about you. Nora says you're an amazing piano player." The girl's face lit up. She nodded, then pulled out her ever-present notebook. "I'm practicing Chopin. It's difficult, but beautiful. I'd love to hear you play sometime." Evangeline smiled and disappeared as quietly as she'd arrived. "She's sweet," Rachel said after the girl left. "A bit ghostly, but sweet. She's been through a lot. Trust doesn't come easily. I understand that." Rachel set down her cup. "Nora, I need to say something. I was wrong before, about warning you away from this. I don't understand everything about your life now, and honestly, parts of it still seem weird. But you're happy, really, genuinely happy. And that's worth more than my paranoid suspicions." Nora felt warmth spread through her chest. "You weren't wrong to worry. You were being a good friend. I'm still your friend. Even if you live in a mansion with mysterious nocturnal people and a kid who writes in notebooks. Especially then." They spent the afternoon talking. Normal things, work, relationships, plans for the future. The kind of conversation that reminded Nora she was still human, still connected to the ordinary world even as she navigated extraordinary circumstances. When Rachel left, she hugged Nora tightly. "Don't be a stranger. I mean it. Coffee once a week, minimum. I promise." Watching her friend drive away, Nora felt something settle into place. She could have both worlds. The vampire politics and rescued women, the library cataloging and coffee shop conversations. She didn't have to choose one life completely. She could be Nora Finch, human, advisor, friend, survivor, all of it at once. That evening, Nora decided to teach Evangeline something human, something normal, something that didn't involve darkness or blood or supernatural politics. "We're making a cake," she announced, spreading ingredients across the kitchen counter. Evangeline stared at the flour, sugar, eggs. I've never made human food. Then it's time to learn. Everyone should know how to bake. They worked together, Nora explaining each step. Evangeline measured carefully, her vampire precision making her better at following recipes than most adults. She cracked eggs without breaking the yolks, stirred batter until it reached perfect consistency. "Why do humans eat sweet things?" the girl asked, pouring batter into pans. "Because they taste good. Because they make us happy. Because sometimes you need something that exists just for pleasure, not survival." Evangeline considered this, then smiled. "That's nice." While the cake baked, they sat at the kitchen table. Nora taught Evangeline card games. Go fish, war, simple things that made the girl laugh. A sound so rare and beautiful it made Nora's heart ache. "You're good for her." Nora turned. Nathaniel stood in the doorway, watching them. His expression was soft, unguarded in a way she rarely saw. "She's good for me too." He moved into the kitchen, drawn by the smell of baking cake. "What is that?" "Chocolate. You can't eat it, but you can appreciate the smell. It's pleasant." He sat at the table across from them. For a moment, they were just 3 people in a kitchen. Not king, advisor, and princess. Just family. Declan appeared in the doorway, summoned by some vampire sense that important people were gathering. He took in the scene, his rough features softening. "Never thought I'd see the day," he said to Nathaniel. "You, sitting in a kitchen while a human bakes cake. Things change." "They do." Declan's eyes moved to Nora. "Haven't seen you this relaxed in a century." "I'm not relaxed. I'm sitting." "You're smiling. That's practically relaxed for you." The cake finished baking. Nora and Evangeline frosted it together, creating messy swirls of chocolate icing. It wasn't professional looking. It was perfect anyway. They cut slices. Nora and Evangeline ate while Nathaniel and Declan watched, content to be present if not participating. "This is good," Evangeline signed with chocolate-covered fingers. "We should do this every week." "Deal." Later, after Evangeline went to practice piano and Declan left to patrol, Nora cleaned the kitchen. Nathaniel stayed, drying dishes she washed, the domestic scene surreal and comforting at once. "I need to do something," Nora said, setting down the last plate. "Will you come with me?" "Where?" "You'll see." They drove through the city in Nathaniel's car, Nora directing him through streets that grew progressively rougher. Industrial buildings, empty lots, places the city had forgotten. She told him to park 3 blocks from a particular alley. They walked the rest of the way. Nora's heart hammered as they approached the place where everything had changed. The alley behind the old theater, the spot where she'd almost died. The graffiti was the same, the smell of garbage and rain. But standing here now, with Nathaniel beside her and months of purpose behind her, it felt different. "This is where you found me," she said. "Yes, I've been avoiding this place, taking different routes, pretending it doesn't exist." She moved to the exact spot where she'd fallen, where her blood had pooled on pavement, but I needed to come back, to see it as a survivor, not a victim. Nathaniel was quiet, letting her process. "I thought I was dying here, thought my life was ending as meaninglessly as it had been lived." She turned to face him, but I was wrong. It wasn't ending. It was finally beginning. "You've come a long way." "We both have," she smiled. "From vampire king and dying woman to whatever we are now. Friends. Allies. Family." He offered his hand. "Shall we go home?" Nora took his hand. His skin was cold, always cold, but the grip was steady and real. "Yes, let's go home." They walked out of the alley together. Behind them, the place where Nora had almost died faded into shadows. Ahead, streetlights guided them toward the car, toward the mansion, toward a life neither had expected, but both had chosen. Nora Finch had survived a suicide attempt at 18, had survived depression and isolation and violence in a dark alley, had survived learning that monsters were real and choosing to help one anyway. And now, for the first time in 10 years, she wasn't just surviving, she was living.